Mel Robbins, the 5-second rule. Transform your life, work, and confidence with everyday courage. Do you often procrastinate despite your better judgment? Perhaps, for example, the urge to binge-watch TV shows has sometimes been so overpowering that you put off an important task at home. Present a simple technique that can help you overcome such urges. It's as simple as counting down from 5. The 5-second rule is a simple decision-making tool that can change your behavior. It was 6 a.m. on a dark winter's day in Boston when the author was rudely awakened by the sound of her alarm clock. There were days when Mel Robbins greeted the morning with a smile, but this was not one of them. She was unemployed, burdened with money troubles, and had a drinking problem. She'd also developed the habit of hitting the snooze button and delaying the day ahead for as long as possible. But this particular morning was different. Instead of hitting the snooze button, Robbins began her day by counting down from 5. This is called the 5-second rule, and it's used to prevent acting on detrimental urges. So instead of rolling over and sleeping on, Robbins counted silently to herself, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. This simple act distracts you from your anxieties and redirects your attention to what you should be doing, instead of submitting to instantly gratifying urges. By continually doing this, you can break a negative cycle and create new and better habits. Robbins also used the 5-second rule to stop avoiding exercise and to push herself outdoors for regular jogs. And when she felt like procrastinating on updating her resume, it was 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and she got to work. This tool is especially useful if you're the kind of person who sits around waiting for inspiration to strike. In 1954, psychologist Julian Rotter coined a concept known as the locus of control. It explains the feeling people perceive of outside forces controlling their lives, and that those who feel more in control tend to be more productive. We're often told to keep an eye out for opportunities and to take them when they appear. But the better advice is to assert control over your own destiny and create opportunities for yourself. Robin calls this the power of the push, and the 5-second rule might just be the push you need. The 5-second rule can unlock your inner courageous side. On a cold December night in 1955, Rosa Parks was sitting on a city bus and refused to stand up and give her seat to a white man. This relatively small act of defiance was nevertheless a historic moment of great courage in the fight for civil rights, and it showed us that it doesn't necessarily take grand gestures to spark significant change. This is the same kind of philosophy that makes the 5-second rule effective. Counting backward from 5 isn't a dramatic lifestyle change, but it can push you toward being a more courageous person. The actions of Rosa Parks led to another small decision that would change the course of history. 4 days after Parks was arrested, people began to organize a boycott of segregated buses, and they wanted a 26-year-old preacher to be the voice of their protest. This preacher would later write, "It happened so quickly that I did not have time to think it through. It is probable that if I had, I would have declined the nomination." That preacher's name was Martin Luther King Jr. Parks and King didn't consider themselves courageous people in their everyday lives, so their instincts weren't to fight against injustice. Yet that's what they did. They both encountered a moment when their instincts collided with their beliefs and goals, and they felt the power of the push. Most of us have instincts that tell us to play it safe and not be courageous. But the 5-second rule can give us just enough time to move in the direction that can open us up to life's opportunities. Each day presents a chance to move toward greatness, or stick with a safe and mundane routine. If you want to live an exceptional life, you'll have to make the choice of taking 5 seconds to push yourself out of your comfort zone. There's no reason to see the great people throughout history as any different than yourself. Rosa Parks was a shy and introverted woman, and Dr. King struggled with self-doubt. They just pushed past these fears. And you can too. Stop waiting for the right time and start pursuing your dreams now. If you want to change the perception your coworkers have of you, all you need to do is raise your hand during a meeting and speak your mind. If you want to add some joy to someone's day, all you have to do is take a moment to compliment them. All these acts require is for you to make a decision, which is something you can always put off by telling yourself that today isn't the right day. Eventually, this can be your life story, forever waiting for the right moment to arrive. So why not let this very moment be the one you're waiting for? Let the 5-second rule be the tool that allows you to make the choices you've always wanted to make. No one dreams of being a person who didn't do anything, but we tend to wait for the right time, even though our perfect scenario may never arrive. According to a recent survey, 85% of professional service employees are keeping feedback from their managers because it isn't the right time. Even the most talented among us need a push to get on the right track. Steve Wozniak, co-founder of Apple, was plagued with uncertainty after he and Steve Jobs were offered funding to start their own business in 1977. Wozniak wanted to hold off for a while and worried about quitting his day job until his friends convinced him to take the leap. Wozniak certainly reaped the rewards the world has to offer to those who stop playing the waiting game. The author E.L. James didn't wait for a lucrative publishing deal before writing the overwhelmingly popular 50 Shades of Grey trilogy. She was a working mother with a passion, and she created her own opportunity by self-publishing the book that she'd managed to write in her free time. 50 Shades of Grey went on to sell 1 million copies in just 4 days, but it would never have happened if she hadn't taken the initiative. You can't control your feelings, but you can always control your actions. To many people, professional athletes are extremely inspirational, as they should be. Athletes show us what's possible when you put your mind and body through rigorous training and practice. Some pro athletes seem practically inhuman, but their ability to push past most people's physical limits is determined by one simple trait. Despite feeling too exhausted to continue, an athlete has the ability to separate from this feeling and continue to run or swim or cycle. Athletes know that feelings are only suggestions, and sometimes it's best to ignore those suggestions, especially when you're trying to reach a goal. This is a good lesson to take to heart, since most of us base our decisions on feelings rather than goal-oriented logic. According to neuroscientist Antonio Damasio, our emotions are the deciding factor for 95% of our decisions. So rather than thinking and acting, we generally feel and act. Part of Damasio's research involved brain-damaged people who were unable to experience emotions. Even though they could list the pros and cons of any given choice, they were unable to make decisions. Damasio's work led him to believe that human beings aren't thinking machines that feel, but rather feeling machines that think. Armed with this understanding of how much dominion your emotions have over your choices, you can put the 5-second rule to work. Instead of letting fears and worries stop you from fulfilling your dreams in life, catch yourself and take 5 seconds to make the decision that brings you closer to your goal. This is what's known as psychological intervention, which dates back to Aristotle, who summed it up as do good, be good. In other words, you have to change your behavior before you can change how you feel about yourself. The 5-second rule is such a useful tool because it's focused on doing just that. It changes your behavior and provides you with the courage to overcome the psychological obstacles that stand in your way. Don't regret all that time spent worrying. Redirect those emotions and start feeling grateful. There's no big mystery to why we're all so prone to worrying. As children, most of us were constantly being taught to worry by over-concerned parents telling us to be careful and put on a coat or you'll catch a cold. As a result, we've become adults who spend far too much time worrying about things that are beyond our control. And the fact is, we'll likely come to regret all this time spent sweating the small stuff. Dr. Carl Pillemer is a Cornell University professor who has spent over 10 years discussing the meaning of life with more than 1,200 senior citizens. Through these conversations, one thing has become clear. Most senior citizens believe they've wasted too much time worrying. Life is far too precious a thing to spend living in fear and anxiety. So before you regret another minute, use the 5-second rule to take control and live life to its fullest. Pay attention to your mood, and when you feel your mind begin to give itself over to worry, take 5 seconds to peacefully count down from 5 so you can reassert control. As soon as you reach 1, ask yourself these 2 questions. What am I grateful for in this moment? And what do I want to remember? Answering these questions will help you shift your focus away from the worry and onto the more uplifting and positive aspects of life. Remember, there are truly important and precious parts of life, such as your relationships and the things you're working on. So use the 5-second rule to remind yourself of the big picture. In any given moment, there are bound to be more things to be grateful for than to be anxious about. You've just heard the 5-second rule by Mel Robbins. The key message in this book is that nothing is set in stone. Your habits, mindset, and personality traits are flexible and subject to change. Once you realize this, your life can start changing for the better. To help facilitate this change, use the 5-second rule, a simple tool that can help you adjust your default reactions by counting down from 5. By changing the way we make decisions, this relatively small act can add up to redefine who you are, how you feel, and what you do with your life. Here's some advice you can take action on. Reframe your anxiety as excitement. Next time you're feeling nervous about something, such as a job interview or speaking publicly, don't tell yourself to calm down. Instead, say, "I'm excited." Anxiety is a state of physiological arousal, and you can flip it around to make it positive instead of letting the fear pull you in. When you tell yourself that you're excited, it provides a valid positive alternative that allows you to stay in control.